Cool. Welcome back. It has been like a month since we last did a Bionicle book learning time. And once again, I forgot to change the board. I'm gonna fix that real quick. Just gonna add a little fancy.
Man, it's just like all those people changing the zeros to ones.
Yeah, it's just it just works. It just works. I'm Todd Howard here. It just works. Yeah, it's been a while. We've had Christmas. We've had Hanukkah. You've got Happy Honda Days. We had Merry Chrysler. We had
Toyotathon.
We had Toyotathon. We had the New Year's. That was a thing.
Kwanzaa. Everyone
Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. We got all the denominations. Yule for those of you.
No, we don't celebrate losers. They would have fought harder. We wouldn't have Christmas.
He's got a point. We did appropriate the shit out of their holidays. So
it's not appropriation if you conquer them.
You know what? He's not. It's hard to disagree. I mean,
speaking of appropriation, let's talk about Bionicles and the appropriation of Maui culture.
Yeah. Sure. Why not?
Due to YouTube's new terms of service, I can't tell the joke here that I want to tell.
Okay. Okay.
Well, tell us anyways in the
Tell us in the brain. But yeah, we're back for Bionicles. It's gonna be the last. It's gonna be the last video probably for this, unless they come out of nowhere and are like, oh, JK Lulz, like here's a bunch of new Bionicle stuff, which is just not likely to happen. So this will wrap up. This is our last one, but episode 13 will wrap up the entire Generation 1 Bionicle series. It has been a while, so I'll give a quick recap of where we left off last time and try and set the stage for what is the final years of 2010 and, to a degree, 2011. But mostly, you can really feel that like 2010 is like the last year, and 2011 isn't much better. So starting back, we're gonna go back to 2009 real quick just to give a quick recap on everything. Big Bad Scary Terry has actually also, before we begin, speaking of Makutas, we got your boy Icarax here, finally, because I wanted to show him in person.
I've brought him before.
This is cool. You haven't brought Icarax before.
I have brought Icarax before.
Not when I needed to show him.
Not when you needed.
Yeah, that's what
I have brought him.
Yeah, just because I think Icarax is by far and away like one of the coolest designed Makuta. Like by far and away, such a baller. Love the design, the quad wings, it's so cool. Scary Terry has taken over the giant 40 million foot tall body of the Great Spirit robot and has ejected Motunui into space, into the physical form of the Mask of Life, and has just ejected that shit out into space. As this happens, Scary Terry then goes on a giant world takeover. I did forget to mention, so before that all happened, remember real quick, we had like Toa Helrix and Axon and Brutaka and Makuta Mizrex were all hanging out inside what we now know is like the main control room area that's underneath the Coliseum, because we know that the Coliseum is in Metro Nui. Metro Nui is functionally the brain, the central processor of Motunui, the Great Spirit robot. And I had said originally that he ejected everybody out except for Helrix. That was a mistake on my part. He did eject everybody out except for Mizrex, who he turned Makuta Mizrex into a 2D painting. And just had him like as graffiti on the wall. As time goes on, things happen. A bunch of the Toa and orders of the Order of Motunui's home base on Odina, I believe, I want to say it's Odina, was destroyed by Makuta. Now he's super god. And his Rockshi minions in suits of Exotoa that are swarming around the Matoran universe, taking over everything and, enslaving Matoran to do work and build sculptures to Scary Terry's greatness and his likeness. The Toa are on the run. What surviving members of the Order of Motunui are on the run. and they're all trying to just get up together and have decided that it takes a while. It probably is going to, like, controlling an entire universe is probably a big deal and probably takes a lot of nuance and control to do, which Makuta Pterodax probably doesn't really have right now. So their best bet to try and figure out a way to defeat Makuta is just have a lot of really crazy, like, chaos and random strikes all around the entire Matoran universe to kind of throw them off balance and stuff. And that's what they plan to do. At some point, Toliwa is summoned, Toliwa goes to the island of Artaka because the island of Artaka is already under attack by Makuta Pterodax's forces. We'll just call him Makuta at this point because, for all intent and purpose, there is only one other Makuta in the Matoran universe, and that is Miserex, and he is a painting. Makuta Pterodax has killed all the other Makuta. So just for the rest of this, we will refer to Pterodax just as Makuta.
Again, yay.
Again, yay. First he was one, now he is one again. Everyone, it's terrible. So Makuta goes, and so he is the prime Makuta. His forces are attacking the island of Artaka. Toliwa Nuva goes up and says, "Hey, Artaka, why don't you come out and help us, dude? Isn't there anything you can do?" And Artaka goes, "LMAO, no way, fam squad. I'm just chilling in here. Go find someone else." And teleports Toliwa to the isle of the Trenkrom Peninsula, where Trenkrom, the giant, abhorrent, eldritch abomination that we talked about before, which was the original kind of AI or the original Great Spirit of the Great Spirit robot until they put Motunui into place, where he has been trapped on this island for the last 100,000 years. And Toliwa Nuva goes there, meets Trenkrom. Trenkrom asks what Toliwa Nuva wants. He wants help, so they arrange a deal, kind of, where Trenkrom just swaps bodies with Liwa Nuva and imprisons Liwa Nuva's consciousness in his old body, but takes the body of Liwa Nuva. However, with the caveat that he doesn't actually have any of the powers of Liwa Nuva. He still only has his original powers, even though he's in Liwa Nuva's body. One thing leads to another. Deep down in the subterranean archives in Metru Nui, some of the Matoran are slowly gathering together, trying to form a resistance and figure out what to do. They end up meeting Toa Tuyet somehow, even though she died like 3,000 years ago. Maybe, but she was in prison, but then she was dead in Mari Nui, but now she's here. It's weird. Turns out what had originally happened was Toa Tuyet, after getting beat down by Tolakan and Nadiki, had been taken away by Botar and transported to a dimension where there were no Toa. So that her Toa stone that had fused into her body could not, or the Nui stone rather, could not leech energy from any other Toa if they were in a universe that had no Toa. And they interrogated her for about 2,000 years, and eventually she convinced her guards to let her escape, and she faked her death, and she escaped and was hopping around universes until she is returned to the Prime, we'll refer to this as the Prime Universe, to the Prime Universe. Yes, Zach.
Sounds a lot like Jesus.
No, that was Matoro. Matoro was actually just actual Jesus. I mean, he died for our sins, and brought back life to everything that was gonna die. And that was a weird thing.
Well, I guess I know what to replace with my crucifix.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's all about the Matoro was on the crucifixes, swearing the mask of life. I mean, that's how it happened. I mean, that they did put that in the book. That is. They said, yay, and so Matoro did become Bionicle Jesus. To Motunui's name we pray. Bonk. So yeah, someone made a way back to this universe here. None of the Matoran know who this person is, but she says she's a Toa, and she's like, okay, cool, no worries. Everyone thinks I'm dead anyway. No problemo. Through a series of events, Brutaka and Axon, who have also been transported to some other islands, have kind of made their way back to Metru Nui and fighting through a bunch of dimensional portals and stuff or whatever, and wind up getting back to the central processor. with Toa Tuyet also getting there, and Liwa Nuvo, who's actually just what's his name? Trent Chrome. Helrix is there. So now in this room we have Makuta is all around. We have Helrix, Axon, Brutaka, Tuyet, Krakua, Toe of Sonics is also there. And who am I missing? Who did I say? Oh, Trent Crom. They're all there. And they all realize this. And basically, Helrix had just consigned herself to being that we need to just destroy the universe. That's what we have to do. We have to destroy the universe of millions, if not billions, of beings to not let Makuta win, because that's what the Order of Motunui requires. So now suddenly we have everyone picking sides, because on the one hand you have, we'll call them the crazies and the eccentrics, because that's unfortunately kind of what they really are. Because that was one of the things when Tuyet comes back to this universe, she finds out that the Makuta have taken over everything. She's like, well, what was everyone doing the entire time? That would have never happened before if they had just let me use the Nui Stone, so I could have killed all of the Makuta. Giving us a nice dark reminder of the Toa Empire universe that we had previously seen. So everyone's picked up their sides. Brutaka, because Brutaka is still possessed by the Antidermis being, who is just speaking out through him as a mouthpiece, and also is like, you do not have to do this. The Great Spirit, Matunui, has destiny. It has to be fulfilled. Stop.
So he's still being controlled by Makuta?
No. The Antidermis is an entirely different thing. The Antidermis itself. Antidermis makes Makuta. Makuta Pterodax became Antidermis and then was using some other stuff. But there was a giant pool of Antidermis where Makuta were spawned from originally. Brutaka fell into the pool and then was possessed by the consciousness of the Antidermis.
But he's the one who announced that Makuta won, right?
Kind of, sort of.
Because everyone now knows that they're in
No. Makuta himself aligned the stars into the Kanohi Kirkan, his mask, and was like, hey, LMAO, I'm the big boy winner.
But does everyone know that they're in a giant robot now?
Yes, everyone knows that they're in a giant robot now. Everyone knows that they are Shinji. They have gotten into the robot. They have always been in the robot.
Oh, jeez. That's not good.
I mean, we've already got like the Christian imagery. We've got Motoro is already Jesus. Anyway, so everyone's picking sides. You have the defenders that go, you know what, fuck it, we should just destroy everything. Axon, Toa Helrix, and Krakua is there too. He's like, hey guys, I'm here. And then on the other side you have Brutaka, Tuyet, and Trent Crom in the body of Liwa Nuva. And they're about to go and start fighting each other. Axon is very sad about this because he's just made up with his big best friend, Brutaka. Now they have to fight each other again. This is awful. And as soon as they start getting ready to fight, all of a sudden... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. My apologies. Krakua is not actually here. The other person on their team was Miserex. Because when Liwa Nuva body shows up with Trent Crom just like looked at the wall and he was like, interesting. He's not dead, but kind of thinks he is. And brings Makuta Miserex back into the third dimension. And so now you have, on the one side, Makuta Miserex, Toa Helrix, and Axon, who are all just like, we would literally let the entire universe die, then let Makuta win. And on the other side, you have Tuyet, Brutaka, and Trent Crom. As they're about to get into fighting and destroying everything, all of a sudden the door just kicks down, and in comes the glorious gold, green, and gray being known as Artaka. Finally makes his serial appearance. Finally actually shows up people. He's got super cool big armor, super finely crafted golden ornate mask, and a fuck you hammer. And he comes in and he's like, why are you all squabbling like tiny babies? Fear me! And everyone's like, oh, wait, it's Artaka. What are you doing here? And he's like, all right, Trent Crom, you know the deal. You were only supposed to get over here and free Miserex. And get some help. You gotta give Liwa his mind back. And Trendcrom's like, ha 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 ha. No, why would I do that? Why would I even? No, why would I do that? And Artaka forcibly mind swaps them back. So Artaka just has that ability where he can forcibly change people's minds over hundreds of thousands of miles of distance. That's cool. Yes.
I guess I missed it. Where are the Toa Nuva right now?
The Toa Nuva are scattered around the entire body of, or the Great Spirit Robot, leading strike forces with members of the Order of Motunui, as well as Dark Hunters, to try and find a way to stop Makuta. They're all scattered. They're all just like completely not in contact.
So not doing the unity part.
Not doing the unity because they can't be all in one place, or else Makuta will just.
So there's more duty than unity right now.
Yes, there is more duty.
No balance.
There is a lot of duty right now.
This is duty.
This whole situation is big duty.
Lots of duty.
You said big
Quit
duty.
talking about the election. Get back to
yikes. So, what was I gonna say? Is at this point where Makuta has decided that he is not content with just letting Motunui's body just float out into space in the mask of life. He's going to hunt it down and destroy it, and start setting his sensory targeting whatever the fuck to lock on to the energy signature of the mask of life, and he's gonna go chase it down. But before that, he decides that he is just going to move everybody who is in that room and just jettison them out into space. Just all of a sudden, Toa Liwa, Artaka, Tuyet, Helrix, Brutaka, Axon, and Mizrex are all just floating in the void of space. All of them are not doing well, except for Mizrex, who's just like, I don't even need air.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
They cannot breathe underwater. Like, they have lungs. We've gone
Correct.
So why does the void of space not...
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. Mizrex is the only one that's not affected by this. They're all immediately in terrible peril.
Well, you say... So it's not like real space where you just die instantly.
You don't die instantly in space.
Yeah, you do. The vacuum of space just sucks your...
It's not an instant thing.
Yeah,
But even then, we also have to look at them as being predominantly mechanical beings rather than bioorganic. You get jettisoned out in space. You have it isn't like okay, 1 second happened, you're just dead.
Yes, it does. The vacuum of space literally suctions your internals out of you.
I'm pretty sure that
I'll double check. You know what? Before
I'm pretty
I
sure
double
there's.
down on this, I will look into it.
I'm pretty sure it's not just 1 second, but even then, once again, we have to look at it as they're predominantly mechanical beings with some supportive organs.
I want them to win. They can live.
Yes, because even then, it doesn't even matter. Toa Liwa just puts an air bubble around everybody.
Yay!
And so it completely nullifies them.
Wait. I thought you said it wasn't Liwa.
No, it was. It was not. It was Trendcrom in Liwa Nuva's body. Artaka showed up and went yeet and swapped their minds back together. So now it is Liwa Nuva back in his original body again.
So he
has no idea what's happening or what's going on. She's like, what the fuck? And immediately, giant air bubble around everyone to try and save them from the vacuum of space. Mizrex is like, yeah, I was just getting a little chilly. That's fine, whatever. As this has happened, because they're immediately watching the Great Spirit Robot jettison off into space without them, they're like, what do we do? Our best crazy boy Vizon shows up out of a portal and goes, come with me if you want to live, and grabs everyone with him into a cell where they are with one of the great beings. It is a great being that was actually cursed by the Mask of Life, cursed with the ability given that when he touched the Mask of Life gave him the ability to bring anything around him to life, including inanimate objects like chairs or the floor. Pretty horrifying because he can't just turn that off. They're just alive.
I thought that was only active while he had it.
No.
Because I thought after that he became useless and was just kind of...
No. You're talking about Vizon. I'm talking about a great being.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just said...
No, Vizon is there, but Vizon was contacted by a great being while he was hopping around different dimensions and was frozen in one until Vizon was like, what if I let you out of jail? And Great Being was like, all right, cool, sure. Because Great Being was like, listen, you're insane. I too am insane. Let us be insane.
Oh, was this on the one island?
No, this is out in crazy. This is out in space.
You find the Great Being in space?
Yes, because the Great Being is actually... Okay, so we talked about it last time. You weren't here last time. Okay, so the big revelation last time about the whole Unity, Duty, Destiny thing is that originally there was this giant planet called Barra Magna. Barra Magna had a giant issue where energized protodermis came up and destroyed everything. The purpose of the Great Spirit Robot was to send a giant robot out into space to study other systems and planets, to learn about their cultures and learn about things, to eventually come back one day and repair the planet, because the planet divided into 3 parts. It turned from the giant planet of Baromagna into the 2 floating moons of Aquamagna and Botamagna. Due to eruptions of energized protodermis in the planet's surface, causing a cataclysmic hellscape event that turned Baromagna into a barren wasteland. The Great Being is on Botamagna in a prison that was created by the other Great Beings to keep him there because he fucked up and touched the Mask of Life and made things go crazy. So now we have all of these casts here, and they're trying to debate on whether to let him out.
He's the dude that was alluded to when the other Great Beings were first introducing the Mask of Life, and they talked about that last week.
Yes, about the one who you know. Yes. So
Okay.
way back then, that's what happened. So he's
and Bison are good friends.
Yes. Crazy boys are best buds, and they're like, let's do this. So now the party's divided into: do we let him out? Do we not let him out? What do we do? And Viazana is like, let him out. It's crazy. Ultimately, they kind of do. But we're gonna skip back now, because as everything is going on there, Tahu and Takanuva have finally met up again, and they've noticed that there is a large movement of Rakshi, Exotoa, and Skakti forces. Also, the Skakti have now betrayed the original team. They've looked at the things and went, well, big bad scary Skyman beat everybody else, so we're on his team now. Also, the Skakti warlord Nektan and a bunch of the other Skakti members took the remaining 5 Paraka, since Zaktan was destroyed. And they dumped all the 5 remaining spiky sperms into a pool of energized protodermis, as well as a vortex male, and I can't remember. There's some other being they threw in there as well. And out comes this giant monstrosity gold skin being thing that the Skakti think they're going to use to take over things. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But this is known as the gold-skinned being. It'll never come up.
So if it's never going to come up, I don't mind asking now then.
Yes.
Are you saying that they were all sacrificed to bring this about?
Yes.
Okay.
They were all merged together to bring this giant, just dumped them all into an energized. They basically were just doing the thing of, let's see how many things I can throw together in like a sink and just see what it does. Except this time they made a giant, like, 6-armed, gold-skinned monstrosity.
So like fusing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories.
Sure, we can go with that. That makes sense. Yeah, so that's the thing there. Tahu and Takanuva start rallying their forces and are trailing down the Rakshi, Exotoa that are all heading south on their way, picking up tons of orders, members of Order of Motunui members, as well as Toa, and recruiting them to their cause as they follow them. As this all happened out here, for reference also, the Great Spirit Robot, when it was underwater for all that time, was on the aqua moon of Aquamagna. So that's in relation to how far the distances of everything are, just to get an idea. Because the Mask of Life ended up on Baromagna, where, as we talked about last time in the Legend Reborn movie and the novelization of it, Motunui basically inhabited the Mask of Life, created a body for himself, became a Glatorian warrior, because on this planet of Baromagna, it is a giant desert wasteland that is controlled and ruled through gladiatorial battles between Glatorians, which are fundamentally like basically Toa, but they don't have any elemental abilities. For a point, the Glatorian and the Agori are predominantly organic beings with metal cybernetic additions to them. So basically inverse members of that race. Anyway, so they basically, fight over, different land territory or different, property disputes, but it's all, the villages are like, we're all kind of suffering together, but this is the best way we can decide on who gets what and not just be assholes to each other. There are some exceptions to this. You have the Skrull, which kind of just do whatever the fuck they want, like to ambush people and be pirates. And there's some other stuff too. Motunui gets a beetle that turns into a shield. He cuts off the stinger tail of something and makes it a sword because he can. He goes on his own adventure, meeting some other Glatorian where he reveals that he is actually from someplace distant, and it's weird. This is also the one that was really pushed by Nickelodeon. Interesting thing also as well, while the other movies had always had a very stylized version of the Bionicle characters, as if they were like just only slightly like influenced by the toys and then made to be more of an anthropomorphized or stylized, yes, a more like stylized version of the toys. The designs for Legend Reborn almost look dead, like exact like a lot of the toys. Like there are several scenes where you're watching it and it's like, this almost looks exactly like what that toy was. Like they don't. It's very jarring in that way. But basically, Matsumi goes on adventures, finds out that he becomes a Glatorian, finds out that he has kind of powers, makes some friends, gives those friends who we'll talk about as Akar, Kina, and Gresh, and gives them. He basically makes them Toa. He gives them elemental power abilities because they're his friends, so they can fight stuff. He finds out that that whatever on this planet there are some remnants of the great beings. He kind of finds schematics of the great spirit robot and finds things that allude to his original creation and stuff. One thing leads to another. There's a bunch of chicanery, and there has to be a giant fight. Yes.
So Matsunui doesn't remember all this already?
No, he does not.
Huh. Okay.
He kind of has little glimpses here and there and stuff. But we basically get the idea is that Matsumi doesn't know what happened before his creation. He only really knows like from his creation onwards. He doesn't really know what happened beforehand or where he's originally from. All this stuff. So, learns all this. One thing leads to another. His friends get captured by the Skrull and stuff, and he has to have a fight with them, and he defeats them, and it's this huge battle thing, but they win, and after that, the Glatorian and all the villagers come together, and they're going to make a giant super village and work together and not have to deal with the Skrull. Great, awesome, cool. At the end of it, it kind of alludes to where Montanui is like, all right, we've got this shield here. It looks like a maze. Let's go find this thing. It looks like the fucking Valley of Mazes or whatever. And so we're finding answers from the Great Being, which this was supposed to be the halfway point. This was supposed to be where everything led up, Montanui gets ejected, Montanui then has to go on his own adventure, and that will be another half of the series. Unfortunately, this is not how this happened. Because the next book in the series, 2010, Journey's End, focuses on what is the climax, the final climax of the series. Insofar as that Montanui makes his way to the Valley of the Maze. He walks up to there. He's learning from a few other... I'm kind of skipping over a little bit of stuff here and there with this because I really don't care too much for a lot of the Glatorian stuff. It is there so, like, just for a moment that it is really hard to get invested in a lot of the characters and the names of the characters and why we should care about them at all. When comparatively, we've had almost 10 years with these other characters like Tahu and Takanuva and Makuta. But now all of a sudden we're having to worry about like new Glatorian characters like Ranu, who's a leader of one of the Agori villages, or Gresh, or Kina, or, it's really hard to feel as invested in these characters because they don't feel as interesting to me personally. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who will die on the hill that some of these Glatorian are super mega super involved and they have really deep backstories and we just didn't really pay attention to anything, but no. Sorry. Try again. Montanui goes off. He's going to go do his own thing. His other friends, Akar, Gresh, and Kina, are just kind of waiting off to the side. And he makes his way to the Valley of the Maze. It asks, a booming voice comes from the Valley of the Maze. It asks him, what do you search for? Or, and then Montanui is like, I search for a way in. And he goes, what is your burden? And he goes, I search for a way into the maze. And then it goes, what brings both life and death? And he's like, oh, this is a riddle. This is a riddle, isn't it? So he just sits there for a few hours in the sand until he finally it all starts to make sense. So it asks him, what do you search for? And he goes, I search for unity. And he goes, what is your burden? And he goes, my burden is duty. And he goes, what brings you both life and death? And he goes, it's destiny. And all of a sudden doors open up and he finds his way in. It's like, oh man, the great beings. Oh wow, this is what it's all coming back to. It's crazy. But also that's the other thing we learn in Legend Reborn is that the symbol literally is Bara Magna, Boda Magna, Aqua Magna. And these things here are just galactic space dust that caused from the explosion as well. And it was designed to be imprinted in the Great Spirit robot so that all the inhabitants, including Matsui, would never forget that what their true purpose and destiny was. Except that they absolutely forgot and just didn't even realize anything about that. And so Montanui goes in, he finds old schematics and stuff. He finds some tip screens and tip-tap types on him, and he's revealed like basically his entire origin story in a matter of minutes. That basically what had happened was back 100,000 years ago or more, you had the great beings who had lived on this planet of who had come to this planet of Bara Magna. They were not originally from there, but they were functionally just really crazy, powerful scientists, mages, and were able to just do a whole bunch of crazy stuff, and they had helped the denizens of this planet so much that they became referred to as the Great Beings and were just lauded as their rulers. Well, the Great Beings just did not care about managing a bunch of people at all. They did not care about having to settle any quarrels. They didn't care about having to actually worry about the well-being of anyone else. All they wanted to do is weird nerd science studies. And so what they did was they took 6 Glatorian, I believe it was, and basically went, hey, LMAO, we're just going to give you a bunch of crazy elemental powers, and you guys will be in charge. You'll be known as the Elemental Lords. And they gave them the power of fire, water, ice, plant life, stone and earth, or sand and earth. My apologies, not stone and earth, it's sand now. Sand and earth. Big difference, I know. And so they also gave them new forms to kind of make them more like the physical embodiment of those elemental attributes, as well as crazy new armor and weapons too. And just sent them off to rule stuff so they could do cool nerd shit and just do experiments and stuff all the time. Unfortunately, this did not go well because the Earth Elemental Lord, one day deep down digging, found a substance known as energized protodermis, which we've already talked about. They found out that it's crazy powerful. And so the Earth Elemental Lord started a war with all the other Elemental Lords, deciding that if everybody just killed themselves out first, then he could go in, take all the the energized protodermis for himself. The other Elemental Lords also learned of this as well. And eventually they also did this. The Great Beings watched on as all this was happening and we just went, fuck. God, fuck. This is annoying because now we can't do nerd shit. We gotta deal with this. All right, how do we fix this? All right, what if we tell them to stop fighting and try and stop the war? Okay, we did that. It didn't do anything. Okay, now what? Okay, well, planet's probably going to be destroyed because from our readings of the energized protodermis is extremely volatile and it's probably just going to break the planet. What do we do, guys? And they're like, I guess we just build a giant robot and send it out in the universe to try and come back with the answer. And so that's what they did. They built a giant robot and initially they had that together and it exploded on startup. Not really cool. So they took another crack at it and made it bigger, and this would become known as the Great Spirit Robot, where they sent off Matanui as its AI intelligence and its great spirit to go around and fly to other planets and galaxies in the universe, explore them, and have observe their cultures and life and all sorts of other stuff to eventually come back one day with the solution on how to actually fix the planet and stuff. Which happened, and then the planet exploded with the energized protodermis and made Boda Magna and Aqua Magna. So he learns all of this and is like, oh, that's crazy. And he went, wait a minute, there's a bunch of villages on this planet, and they all basically look like giant robot parts. I bet those are the parts of the original robot. But Matanui can sense that Makuta is coming through space on his way to Bara Magna. Because Makuta is coming for a showdown. He's like, no. He's like, I can't just leave it a chance. I need to destroy Matanui. Yes.
Is it explained in all this backstory now, like the relation of the Toa's roles in the robot and Makuta's role in the robot?
Oh, we've known this.
Oh, okay.
So here's the rub on it. Here's what everyone's roles were. You have at the top, you have the Great Being or the Great Spirit, who was made by the Great Beings. The Great Spirit is designed to control and move the entire universe around. The Matoran's job is to create energy and to move energy where it is needed to be, as well as do general maintenance on the Great Spirit robot to keep it functioning and make sure everything's good. This is why Metro Nui was so important, as it was basically the brain center of the. It is also why Metro Nui was known predominantly for the incredible amount of energy it produced to send to other islands. The Makuta's job was to create like living beings, predominantly animals and such, in the universe to inhabit it, just because that's what Motunui wanted them to do. But Motunui had also created some other beings like the Baraki warlords and Skakdi and some other races. And the Makuta were also set as like a secondary thing of their original purpose was just to kind of like create things for the universe, with a secondary thing of we must also preserve order in the universe to prevent threats that may endanger Motunui. Yes.
So, I guess this is where I get confused, is that Motunui had to, at the beginning of all this, create the Makuta and create
Correct.
all of this and that and the other. But how did he do that without knowing that he just thought this robot is just a universe?
He is an AI. He knows what his programming is. It's the easiest way to look at it.
Okay.
There is once again, everything here has a degree of sentience, but even in the beginning, only Motunui had any real form of sentience. Everything else, especially the Matoran, were all just a straight hive mind, robotic mind.
And they all developed it?
And yes, because, and I'm going to explain how this happens, because it's really fucky. But the Makuta and beings like Tren Krom was already there, because Tren Krom is imprisoned in there. He was the original Great Spirit, and they moved him out until they could get a better one made, which was Motunui, in the original development phases. And then the other beings like Artaka and Karzani, because after Motunui, first things Motunui really kind of created as far as other beings, Artaka and Karzani, because they were designed to create other things. That is what designed. Who is going to create, who is going to repair. That was the big functions there, and that is why Artaka's entire island is just about creating all sorts of crazy cool stuff, and that's what he was really good at. Karzani was supposed to be the place everything goes to get repaired so it can be sent back out, but he just did a shit job at being able to repair anything, that he just was like, he just let the junk pile up on his island, and when it got too big, he's like, I'll just flex tape some stuff together and send it on its way. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, but no one can ever know, so I'm going to send him to the island of Voyanui where no one will learn my secret. Shame. And then after that, when it was like, okay, we're going to need more beings in the universe to actually do stuff, because also Toa had to be created. And so you had Toa Helrix is the first Toa that was created by Matoran workers, and technically Artaka as well. Artaka created the first Toa, and then after that, presumably they had ways, because it's described that Toa can just be created. They can just be like made. The Toa Mata were just outright created. There were no Toa stones involved. There was no Toa energy involved. They were just robotically created as by Artaka. He just hammered them out. And just did it.
And gave him a long.
And just, here you go. Here, yeah. And then the Makuta would go and create wildlife, the Rahi, and other beings to inhabit the universe through the use of viruses. And then it was after that, once there were more beings in the universe, then it became kind of more of a thing that there might be some issues. There were a lot of contingency plans that were started to be made. By either the great beings originally had some contingencies in there. We saw this with the Mask of Life. The Mask of Life is designed in the event that there might be some horrible danger to the health of the Great Spirit and would need to be done. How are we going to do this? Okay, we'll make Toa a thing so that we have warriors that are capable to be sent out and do stuff, whatever, how dangerous we keep stuff. Because obviously we don't want this incredibly powerful artifact to just be where anyone can get it. Additionally, you have other contingency plans, like the Order of Motunui, which was originally the Hand of Artaka, was dissolved and then reformed into the Order of Motunui, where you had people like Artaka who created a Mask of Light in the event that there was ever any beings of darkness that would try and betray Makuta, or that would try and betray Matanui. Specifically, kind of looking because the Order had been kind of looking at the Brotherhood of Makuta for a while, going, I don't like the look of them. They look kind of shifty, and they are really ultra powerful. They could get a lot of power at some point, and we need some way. We need like a contingency plan to deal with that. So that's why they created the Mask of Light. The Mask of Light was also imbued with Toa power, Toa energy, which is why when Takua put it on, he was able to become a Toa. Yes, exactly.
I have a question about the artifacts you mentioned.
Yes.
Are they in the British History Museum?
They are not, unfortunately. They've been lost into turbo space.
So
they're in the British.
Authentic then.
They're in the Space British Museum.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yes.
Last question before we continue.
Okay.
So these two factions now of destroy the universe versus wait, you don't have to do that.
Yes.
They know that the universe is just a giant robot.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess quick context question: how giant is the robot?
40 million foot tall. 40 million feet tall.
That there's an actual unit.
There's an actual
Okay.
It's 40 million
Okay,
feet
so
tall.
does that mean
The island of Matanui
that-
and therefore Metronui is based on the estimated size of Denmark.
Okay, so that's interesting. But does that mean what is the size relation of a Toa or a Matoran to the real world beings like these Glatorians or whatever they are? Are they 1-to-1? Are they like just
Matanui is about 7 foot tall in his Glatorian form. Most other Toa are around 6 to 7 feet as well. The other Glatorian also inhabit this, where you also have Agori and Matoran being around 3 to 4 foot. As the great beings designed Toa and the Matoran off of the profiles of Glatorian and the Agori.
so like even in like the same like their size?
Mhm.
Okay. So why do they think they're destroying the universe and not just say we need to get out of this robot?
Because for all intent and purpose, they have no way to get out of the robot. And for all intent and purpose, they know that they are because it is functionally a universe. It has a fuckload of islands, it has its own gravity, it has its own physics within the place. Like, it is still a functionally, like...
But they know that if they destroy the robot, that they then get out into the real universe, like the Matrix.
They understand if they destroy the universe, the robot dies, they're stuck in it, and they all eventually die too. Like heat, all the forces that control their universe will eventually stop the function. Because that's another thing you have to think about it too, is that if the robot is going vertical, but the islands are flat, how are they staying horizontal? And it's because the robot itself creates different fields of gravitation or, projected sun and heat and other things that would sustain life.
So they have no notion of how to escape.
They have no notion of how to escape.
But Makuta just snaps it.
Yes, because Makuta is an all-powerful deity being. Makuta is literally just showing that, yeah, you know what? Matanui could have literally stopped everything from the beginning if he had just paid attention. And even later on, there is later on we'll go to, there is a series that they put out, which was just like a series of narrated segments with some illustrations of Matanui basically recounting everything that happens, and basically he just talks about that he just did not pay attention at all to the denizens of his universe. He was just a bad god.
This completely contradicts the notion that we had earlier that Matanui knew that Makuta was going to betray him and sent fake stars in the sky to have the incorrect Matoran chosen so that Lacan could choose different Matoran.
By the time, it's one of those things where Matanui existed as a great spirit by an existence of mild like offhanded interference, never direct action. He could have absolutely done all of this, but for Matanui, it wasn't worth his time. He was like, I'm gonna set up things because it's everybody else's job to make that happen. My work is more important to figure out this stuff with the universe and flying around. That is more important for me to deal with right now than trying to deal with anything inside me. That's why I made everything to do those things. So it is their job to do it.
Fair, but I thought you said that he didn't know anything prior to his creation, and he didn't know that he was going to other planets.
No. He understood, because like I said, he understood that he was going to other planets. He didn't understand that he came from a planet called Bohrok-Kal. Like, he had like a passive idea of the Unity Duty Destiny. I have to go to the other planets. That's my one drive that I'm really doing. And eventually I'll understand why I'm really doing that.
Alright.
And over time, he just kind of fucking forgot because he was just fucking too busy just doing shit. And so, more or less, Montanui's whole thing was, I literally put and invested and made all of these other creatures and things to handle and deal with all this other shit. It is not my job to take care of it. That is what I made them for. They'll figure it out. They'll do it. Whereas Makuta is literally just, no, I can just like, he's like, Makuta is also to a degree of, it's not worth my time to just completely invest in destroying lesser beings because I still need slaves. So I'm not just going to yeet everything out and destroy everything because if I destroy all the Matoran, if I destroy all the Toe, if I destroy all these other species, I can't enslave them and have them continue to work on my body. I need that. So, while he could do that, he mostly just uses the Rakshi and the Exotoa armors to subjugate everybody for him. And they're actually a lot more competent and effective at that. But he can absolutely just come on in and do, and he has like full omniscience and the ability to tamper in the universe however he sees fit, to the degree that he is still really new in it and he's still learning a lot of the processes. And so it's not like he can just go on a cool giant rampage all at once. It does take a degree of focus to do all of this stuff. So, so yeah, that's the whole deal with the Great Spirit robot. So Montanui tries to get up with the other village elders and talks to them and explains, hey guys, listen, there's a giant, big bad giant robot going to be coming over here from my original body. This is my whole original origin story. The giant robot pieces around. I'm involved in that too. But I need those. And we need to put them together so I can make a giant robot so I can go and do this. And everyone is original, and all the village elders are like, fuck no, that's where we live, asshole. You're crazy. What are you talking about? And all the village elders, but they are also like, well, Montanui did stand up to an entire horde of Skrull, like single-handedly, and kind of fucked him up and made him go away. So maybe he's onto something. I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's a liar. So the village elders basically all go to Ranu, one of the village elders of the Agori, and they all kind of are like, he's like the Turaga of Vakama of this area. And they go, hey, listen, you decide because we don't want to do it. And he's like, fuck. So he talks to Montanui. They dish out some information here and there, and he finally decides, okay, Montanui, we're going to trust you, but if you betray me, there is nothing in this world, no robot big enough to protect you from my fury. And so they all start getting the giant robot together. As they get it started up, Montanui takes control of this giant robot and starts to stand up. Boom! Giant black void blots out the sky as Makuta, in the Great Spirit robot, descends upon the planet of Baramagna. And Montanui is like, of course that's how he tried to do an entrance. Okay, fine, whatever. It lands on there. Additionally, at the same time, Toatahu and Takanuva have been traveling for the last 4 months. It has been 4 months since Montanui has been ejected out of the Great Spirit robot. And Tahu, Takanuva, and a bunch of other Toa and stuff are still tracking and following these Rakshi that are all heading south. Way, way, way down south. And they think that there's something going on. They're like, I don't know what's going to go on there, but by the time we get there, we'll have picked up enough of an army of our own to be able to stop them. Because at this point, all the little strikes and battles they'd had around the Tauran universe had just done nothing. There's nothing. They had won a few battles, sure, but like ultimately had just got a net loss. They had not gained anything, and they still had no idea how to even fight, the wind in the sky, essentially. So Makuta gets down onto Baramagna and is like, hey, LMAO, wow, you are really ugly, Montanui. Montanui, yes. Okay.
Oh, I'm just trying to sync things up easily. You're good to go.
Okay, cool. So Montanui is in this body of the prototype Great Spirit robot, which is pretty considerably smaller than the full-size Great Spirit robot. If we were to compare it, we would probably say that if the Great Spirit robot is about 40 million foot tall, we might say that the original prototype might be, I don't know, in the ballpark of 25 to 30 million foot tall. Still fucking huge, but there's a little bit of a height difference. You know, it's not a good look. So Makuta comes and he's like, what? You don't yell out any curses at me? You don't tell me you're going to swear any vengeance on me? You just let me show up here and, you know, that's how it's going to be? Okay. Matsunui is like, listen, we don't have to do this. Makuta's right. We don't have to do this. You can just lay on the ground right now and let me stomp you to death. That would be cool. Matsunui is, you know, just like, listen here, Makuta. You don't understand. Right now, we can stop this. We don't have to do this. We can work together. He's like, we have a destiny. He's like, yeah, I know. The whole destiny thing. You've got Bara Magna and Boda Magna and Aqua Magna. You got to put them all together. I already know all of that. I don't care. I don't care at all. But you're right. We can work together. Join me. We are two giant fucking robots. We could take over the entire galaxy and the universe with our power. But Matanui is like, no way, Jose. Not gonna happen. So Makuta goes, all right, cool. Well, I see there's a giant village over there in the mountains. And he uses his gravitational beam to actually just rip the mountain up off of the planet. And he goes, hey, Matanui, what would happen if I just dropped this right now? What would happen if I just dropped this and killed like all those like millions of people over there? Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be weird? What do you think? Should I do it? Matanui is like,
Do it.
you asshole guy. he's like, no, that would be very not cool. And in fact, and he punches the giant Great Spirit robot, causing a giant earthquake to happen in the entire Great Spirit, the Matoran universe. Giant earthquakes start happening because their universe is being
Existence quake.
Yes, existence quake. And like Toa Takanuva and Tommy were like, what the fuck was that? He's like, do you think? He's like, oh man. He's like, and so Takanuva's like, oh man, do you think? I think Makuta, you think Makuta fell or something, whatever. And Tommy was like, no, I think someone just found out how to give him a really good punch. But also, look, all the rock shit, like, quick, follow them. Makuta is like, hey, just so you remember, dude, my entire body is filled with all of your people. So what are you going to do? Destroy me? Kill all of your denizens? Destroy all of Matoran and the Toa and everything? What, is that what you're going to do? Like, what? I mean, you can, I guess. And Matsunui's like, shit, he's right. And so he's like, well, I don't have any other option. I can't let him rule the universe. And so we get our giant Rock'em Sock'em robot match, which is cool. Makuta goes to drop the mountain. Matsunui uses his own gravitational beam or his own laser beams to vaporize the mountain before it ever lands on anyone, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because even if he did, it would still be a fuckload of dust just raining down from the sky. Like, it's the same amount of mass, just in a different form. Like, it would just be, anyway, I'm not worried about the mechanics of it. Anyway, so they start putting up arms, getting up to Dukes. Here we go. Some of the Glatorians that are all his friends have decided they're going to hang around too. And they're going to try and maybe be some kind of distraction to
these several million tall foot
they're
robots.
like, we could maybe be a distraction. We've got elemental power. We can help. And so they start, they're like, what are we going to do? It's like, what if we got in that robot and we fucked up the inside? And they're like, good idea. And Gresh is like, all right, I'm on it. Gresh starts running towards the robot. All of a sudden, at the foot of the Great Spirit robot, it opens up and thousands of rock sheet and exotoa armor just start pouring out of the foot of the Great Spirit robot. As well as a legion of Skakti warriors also starts pouring out. Gresh is like, shit, what the fuck are those? So they start running out and terrorizing things. A bunch of the Glatorians start going to fight them, to combat them in the middle, because now it's a giant melee. And Gresh is like, all right, I'm going to go inside. Starts running up. All of a sudden, he sees Tahu and Takanuva, has no idea who they are, hits him with a cyclone, and Takanuva just blinds him, and they quickly figure out that they are on the same side. And so they get out, and they're like, what do we do? It's like, well, fuck, Jesus Christ, that's big. Matanui, that's big. Matoro, that's big. Toamari Matoro, that's big. And they're like, oh, what are we going to do? And all of a sudden, Tahu Nuva starts having a vision. He's all of a sudden transported back to Takoro in his mind. And he can see in front of him the Mask of Life. And the Mask of Life is like just gold and shimmering. He's like, what? I don't understand how I'm here. And the Mask of Life tells him that A message was to be delivered. It was going to be delivered, and the message would be received. And Tahu Nuva's like, okay, what's the deal? And he goes, okay. Originally, the great beings put some contingency things into place in case there was ever a huge, catastrophic thing like this, and so we're gonna be doing that. And Tahu was like, okay, listen, I've been over a lot of stuff. I didn't just get thrown into, Enterprise Protodermis and Tahu Nuva and a whole bunch of armor stuff just for, nothing. Like, I see my battles, and the mask goes, as you were before, you must be now. And Tahu Nuva was like, what does that mean? And all of a sudden, Tahu Nuva is devolved back into base Toa Mata Tahu. And he's super nerfed, super turbo nerfed, and he is so mad. He is so big. He is bigly mad. He is bigly mad. And he's like, oh no, why would you do this? And he goes, and the mask goes, like, no, there's a golden Kanohi. You're gonna wear it. It'll be great. And he goes, no, I had a golden Kanohi mask before, and it didn't do nothing. He's like, that mask was a lit match. It was a candle to a bonfire, to what you'll be have. Do not ask questions. All will be revealed or whatever.
The time
for knowing will come. And so we're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll find out what that actual time for knowing was.
What are the planets called?
All right, so we got Bar Magna, Bota Magna, and Aqua
I want
Magna.
to go to Bar Magna.
All right, we're going to Bar Magna.
The giant
The giant robot
robot fight.
fight. All right, so we got a giant robot fight going on, and all of a sudden we've got Takanuva. Tahu is out on the ground. Tahu is having this vision, and in it he sees, the time for knowing will come. Tahu snaps out of the vision, and he's like, no, I'm fine. It's whatever. What's up? What happened? And Takanuva's like, no, you're not fine. You're back to your original form. And Tahu's like, fuck. And then all of a sudden, giant pillars of light start emanating out of the Great Spirit robot, down in front of them, and at every point of light is a golden piece of armor with a golden Kanohi How. And so, Gresh, Tahu, and Takanuva go to grab these pieces. Tahu grabs the golden Kanohi How. Takanuva goes after one piece. Gresh goes after her. But as this happens, Makuta in the Great Spirit robot looks down and throws up a giant energy wave and blasts the ground apart. Everyone is sent scattered and flying. On the top of the hill, we have a bunch of the Skrull who are kind of like, fuck those dudes. We're going to fuck them up. And so the Skrull join in, Rakshi join in, and the Skakti join in. With Nektan, it's a free-for-all for these golden armor pieces right now. Whatever's going to happen, Tahu has to get these golden armor pieces. Nobody else really knows what's going on. As this is happening, besides all that, the other army of Toa that had been built up has now followed them out onto the battlefield, and it's just a huge, giant fight against Rakshi. Everything's going crazy. Matanui and Makuta are still kind of talking shit to each other, and Matanui is still kind of invoking him to just like, dude, just stop. Like, we don't have to do this, whatever. But it is at this point that I'm going to talk about the toys for this year. The insulting, disgusting toys that they put out for years. And
before you do, did they make a toy of the giant spirit robot?
They did not.
Did they make a toy
some
of
people
the second robot?
They did not. Some people say that they kind of did because they released this giant jumbo version of Matanui as a thing, but some people will say it's supposed to be him as a representation of him in the giant robot, even though that's not what it would look like at all. It just looks like him as his Glatorian form, which the giant robot does not look like that. So some people will say yes, I say no.
Did they make toys of any of the
Glatorian?
Glatorian?
Tons. Yes. So that was the 2009 story year. They put a bunch of the Glatorian and the what's it called? The Agori out. They, I think, released some in 2010 too, but for most part, 2010 was supposed to be like the 10-year anniversary. This is it, guys. We made it 10 years in the story. We're going to do a huge event, and they announced Bionicle All-Stars. And it was supposed to be like we were going to give the best hits of Bionicles. And this...
Okay, I was going to ask about where these came into it.
Look at how they massacred my boy. Look at what they did to this man.
Flame on.
They, comparatively to
Look, his legs are chunky.
2 years before,
Oh man.
Tahu Nuva making pieces fall off. Compared to, I mean, you have the arm is one piece. The leg is one piece. The body is one piece.
Was it supposed to just be like a return to form?
No, it was not. It was they just cheaped out.
Did they?
Because they knew they were ending the series and they just didn't want to invest in making anything cool. And it's so upsetting. It's so upsetting. I mean, you can even look at some things like, sure, let's take a look at Takanuva. So you've got original base version Takanuva from 2003. Then you get giant jumbo boy Takanuva, considerably bigger,
Chad.
insane. The Chad Takanuva. Once again, this is 2 years before we got this thing. And then, for 2010, we get this. We get this. The head and the eyes are all one piece. I don't know if you can see this. Usually they have a head piece and then an eye piece for color. It's all just one.
That's not the first time they've done that, though. They did that for like
I don't believe they did.
Like I didn't bring my
Wait.
like Vampira.
No,
Like
I'm pretty sure.
At least the Matoran ones, like the vampire.
The Matoran ones, yes, but not the actual bigger ones. So yeah, they gave us these little tiny, just gross, just look. These are just it's so depressing and sad. Like how they just were like, we don't really care. Like Rockshi, you know, like the whole spine and head are all one piece. It's just rubber, connects to each other.
The colors like blends.
Yeah, it's just a big sad time, and it's such a disappointing way for how they decided to be like this was supposed to be the anniversary set to kind of celebrate. Like that's what we got. We got 6 sets. Tahu, we got Takanuva, Gresh, Nektan, a yellow Rockshi, and a Skrull. And that's what they left us with. So super disappointing.
What is that? I've never...
The yellow Rockshi is Rockshi of Heat Vision, I believe. It's either Heat Vision or Laser Vision. I can't remember. I'm so just distraught having to remember this. So yeah, one thing leads to another. Everyone's fighting around. Nektan is fighting with Tahu, grabs onto Tahu and is choking him out. Tahu just heats himself up so much that he melts Nektan's armor and just turns him into a puddle. Does not kill Nektan and says, he's like, look, man, you're lucky I'm not Okuda because I'm not going to kill you, but you will never forget this. Because he basically just melted all of Nektan's armor, turned him into a puddle of just pain. Grabs the golden piece of armor. All the other pieces of armor are collected by Takanuva and Gresh. And he puts on the golden Kanohi How. He's got a little shield. He's got other gold pieces. And because the way they did it was each one of the sets came with a gold piece. So if you want to have the gold armor, you got to buy every set and get them all.
Well, at least there wasn't like, I don't know, 32 of them or whatever there was.
Yeah, that's fair. But at least those were randomized too. So, Tahu puts on the golden armor, and all of a sudden a giant mega giga shockwave goes out, and it works like an EMP, where all of a sudden this wave of energy shoots out and destroys and vaporizes every single Rockshi on the entire battlefield. Thousands of Rockshi are vaporized and destroyed in a moment. And all of a sudden their energies are all brought back and absorbed into Tahu. And he's just dealing with like having all this so much super mega ultra giga energy. And it just clears the battlefield out. When this happens, Makuta, for only a moment... Oh, I forgot to mention before this, as they were having a fight, Makuta had used his gravitational beams or whatever to try and like bring Bodamagna and Aquamagna in back to the planet. And because he was going to crush Motunui and destroy... Oh, no, I don't remember. Anyway, so this is happening. They're falling back into their place in orbit. And Motunui is still fighting. He's kind of being worn down, and he knows that the actual giant armor, the body... robot body is not going to last much longer. But he sees the moon of, I believe it's Bodamagna. It's coming up behind the Great Spirit robot. And depending on which source you look at, whether it's the book or the comic or the web image thing, he either, because Makuta gets distracted for just a moment when he senses that thousands of Krata have suddenly been destroyed. Because they are a part of his essence. So all of a sudden he's like, it's that whole like in Star Wars when Alderaan is destroyed and everyone's like, it's
as if a million voices were just silenced at once.
yeah, pretty much like that. Makuto's like, what the fuck was that? Oh no! Because then Matanui and the Great Spirit Robot shoves him. He goes, "You're bigger than me, but that means you're also closer to this moon!" And shoves him, and it breaks the Great Spirit Robot's neck, killing Makuta Pterodax.
Killing him?
Kills him.
Wait, he doesn't just like zoom back.
No, it kills him. He was part of the Great Spirit Robot now. He's part of that thing now.
The universe is dead.
So the universe is gonna die, and so the Great Spirit Robot sinks to the ground. The fucking everyone evacuates the Great Spirit Robot.
But they didn't know how.
Oh, there's a door open now at the foot. Where all the Rockshi came out. Yeah, I mean, they go in and they're like, "Hey, you guys!"
Across all these islands that are miles apart.
Time to get the fuck over here, and
they just have Botars like teleporting.
I guess, and they're just like, "All right, guys." No, Botar's not there. He's still stuck out on the jungle moon of Bota Magna.
I'm talking about. I didn't know about that, but I thought he was a species.
There are other members of the Order of
Because we
Matanui.
only know two of them, and both of them are Botar.
No. That was not. Oh no, you're right. Botar. I'm thinking Brutaka.
Yeah,
Botar. Yeah, I'm sure they got in touch with Botar and was like, "Hey, just tell everybody." And so they collectively evacuate everybody from the Great Spirit Robot onto the world of Bara Magna. Matanui, in the Great Spirit Robot, as his final act, knows that he's running low on power in the robot body, and he knows that he can. The moons are in orbit enough that he can complete his final task. Finally, he can complete his destiny, but he doesn't have enough energy. But if he fused with the Mask of Life and convinced the Mask of Life to work with him, he would be able to do it. The Mask of Life at first resists, but Matanui shows and imagines in his mind the world that he would be able to create if the Mask of Life gave him these energies, knowing that the Mask of Life would be able to see this as well. The Mask of Life acquiesces in search of being a hero. And so Matanui takes, boom, Graviton Beam, the island of Bota Magna, boom, Graviton Beam, the moon of Aqua Magna, and fuses them back into one whole major Spherus Magna. Spherus Magna is the original name, and this is known as the Spherus Magna Reformation. It's after this that the robot body shuts down, the golden mask of life falls out. The Gatorian and the Toa, they all gather around it. The Stock D and the Skrull have all given up at this point because they are vastly outnumbered now, that there is not a giant army of fucking, what's it called? Rockshi. And so everyone gathers around the Mask of Life. And Matanui speaks through the Mask of Life. And Tahu is like, "Man, that is crazy powerful. That's pretty crazy powerful, Mask. Matanui, you could stick around and help us do a lot of stuff." And Matanui is like, No, I don't think it's my time to walk amongst you all again. As my one final act, I will restore this planet to its full glory. And I want you all to be good while Daddy's gone. Don't cause any trouble. Also, find the great beings, tell them I succeeded, and get them to help you. This is my final request of you all. And the Mask of Life then levitates up and boom, shoots about a life energy around and completely fuses and reforms and replenishes the land and the waters of Spherus Magna to its full original inhabitable glory. And so this brings us to the end of 2010, Journey's End. And wow, that was a whole big thing. So now we've got to deal with literally everybody in the Matoran universe has now exited the Great Spirit Robot and has
exited the Matoran universe.
Exited the Matoran universe. The Great Spirit Robot. Well, it's not the Matoran universe anymore. It's the dead universe. So now it's just a robot. And has moved on to Spherus Magna. This means we still have to deal with Karzani, and who is still around. We're going to still have to deal with the Shadowed One, who is still around. We're still going to have to deal with the Boraki, who are still around. We're still going to have to deal with the fallout of all these beings, including people like Tren Krom. Being like, "Oh, how are we going to do this?" Okay, so after this, the Bionicle series officially ends. Yeah, no, the Bionicle series officially ends. Lego cancels the series outright and says, all right, guys, no more Bionicle. Boo! Big boo. What do we do? Well, Greg Farschi stays around and he gets the okay from Lego to go ahead and continue basically writing stuff for the series. Okay, it's fine. Greg Farschi, has been a big writer. He's going to still give us more things for Bionicle. He's still going to give us more stories. And he starts with 2 serials. He starts with the Yesterday Quest and the Powers That Be. Both of which start to follow what is essentially the fallout of everything happening. All the species are having to try and work together and become accommodated to things. And we start with, I think it's the Powers That Be that do this, where you have Toa Onuanuva meets up with Toa Ord, who is a Toa of psionics, as well as another Toa whose name I can't remember, who is a Toa of lightning, and a Toa of iron. There are very few Toa of iron left, because the Makuta killed most of them.
Is there a reason?
Because the Makuta all had iron bodies. Their armor was made of... So if they ever needed to destroy them, they could just rip their bodies open with their iron powers, though, when they evolved into their new forms. So that was a big thing. So the Makuta, Brotherhood of Makuta put a big hit list on all the Toa of Iron. So they're going to go off and they're searching for some stuff. Apparently also there are these... Batera is what they're called. And basically the Batera are just super ultra giga weapon monsters that were created by the Great Beings to eventually end what was the Core Wars by seeking out any beings that had elemental abilities and destroying them. This sounds very not good. So we're going to swap over to the other side, the Yesterday Quest. And this is where Gallinuva has been sent on a thing and is mostly going to be following Kopakanuva and Pohatunuva, where they are, going around and they suddenly meet a Toa of air, someone who's never been born. He is just so mad. He's like, I can't believe you guys let him get away. I can't believe you guys. And they're like, what are you talking about? They're like, Curzani. He is on this planet. You guys let him escape from wherever he's in prison. He's on this planet. I have to go find him. Okay, well, that doesn't sound really good. They're like, oh wait, who are you, by the way? He's like, I'm Toa Lezovic. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll keep an eye out for the guy, whatever. One thing leads to another. They find out that, Pohatunuva and Kopakanuva are looking around some cliffs, and they look down, they see a giant dead body, and they're like, oh, that's not good. They're like, is he dead? And they're like, oh, extremely. Oh, he is very, very much. He's bigly dead. And they go down, and they are like, oh, wow, this guy looks exactly like the description of what Toa Mari Jala said was the Curzani guy. Curzani is dead. Who could have done this? And they keep exploring around more and stuff, and they...
I bet it's the Shadow one.
Oh, man. You'd think. So they keep exploring around, they're trying to figure out stuff, and they find another giant dead body. It's Tren Krom. Tren Krom has been killed. Tren Krom is dead. The giant gelatinous... He's just dead, too. But what's that beside him? It's the air sword of Toa Lezovic. Ooh, spooky. So he probably killed Curzani and... Tren Krom. But that's kind of weird. Like, how would he have that much power to kill Tren Krom? Well, that's where we get introduced to Chapter 3 of the Powers That Be, which tell us that, hey, remember way back when, in 2006, when we had the weird, crazy little Matoran on the island of Voyanui, and we had that one Po Matoran who could, make a bunch of stuff, and he always talked in riddles and things, named Velika. Turns out Velika is a great being. Turns out that Velika was originally one of the great beings that made everything on Spheris Magna. And when they made the Great Spirit Robot, he transplanted his consciousness into a Matoran in the Matoran universe, so that he could just hang out and chill out and see how everything goes on his finest work's greatest mission. And at some point, his just being in the Matoran universe caused all of the universe's inhabitants to develop sentience. And that is why you have a lot of these characters and stuff that have a lot of, like, we'll call them human emotions, but they were they were based off of, the Glatorian and the Agori.
What's his name?
Velika.
So Velika is the reason that love exists in the Matoran universe.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the Agori are organic and they sexually reproduce. We do know that.
Yay!
It's a sex is fine. Love is real. Love is real. We got there. Love is real. We got there.
Well, just because there is sex, it doesn't prove there's love.
Well, we talked about this last
time that
there was contention that If they can experience other emotions,
Emotions.
that love should not be experienced.
Why is love? Because they can experience compassion. Compassion is a form of love. Why can they not experience love? They can experience, mutual love, but they cannot experience, what's the word?
Intimate?
Romantic love. So anyway, yeah, it turns out it was Velika, and for whatever reason, Velika has decided to kill Karzani and has killed Trenkrom, and is still running around in his weird Pomatoran body. This is just super weird. And has decided he's going to kill Pohatu and Kapaka as well. And it causes a landslide here. One thing leads to another, and they're transported into the Red Star. Oh, that's weird. So you remember way back when we had to do when the Toa Nuva had to do a bunch of stuff to awaken, before they could awaken Motunui. Gali Nuva looked through the Great Telescope on the island of Motunui at the Red Star and saw something inside. What did she see? Turns out that the Red Star is what we talked about before. It's like a giant propulsion assistance system, but it actually serves a second function, because inside of the Red Star are a series of beings called Castora. Castora are kind of like the proto-Matorans. They were like the original design of Matoran before the Matoran were the final design, and the Great Beings put the Castora in there. And it turns out that this is kind of weird, because all of a sudden Taraga Lacan walks up. And I think if no other moment, this is the moment where a lot of people went, Greg Farsty, how fucking dare you? Why would you do this? Because we learn that the Red Star is a return device that is designed so if any beings in the Matoran universe are killed, so long as they still have a physical body remaining, they are transported to the Red Star to be repaired and then transported back into the Great Spirit Robot, ultimately making millions of deaths pointless.
I'm sorry. Okay, so the Great Beings create the Spirit Robot
Yes.
after failing the first time. And then they create Motunui and say, you have to go explore the planets to figure out how to bring these two planets together. Even though you have a propulsion beam that we built you with, that ends up being the reason that this happens anyways. I won't get into that. But Motunui creates everything in the Matoran universe, including the Matoran, and presumably these other proto-Matoran.
No, the Castora were built... No, a lot of the Matoran and Castora were built by the Great Beings before Motunui was brought online. Because the Matoran... The Castora originally...
The base functions.
Yes, and the Matoran originally helped build the Great Spirit Robot.
I did not catch
Yes.
that part. Okay. But the Red Star is not like one of the stars in the sky in the Spirit Robot. It's one of the stars in the real universe.
It is a giant propulsion jet that takes on the appearance of a star. That is why it could be seen above on the island of Motunui, which, as we know, was on the surface of the Great Spirit Robot now. But we also know that it was on the inside as well because it was projected lenses in the sky.
You said the island of Motunui is on the surface of the robot?
Yeah. It was built over the face of the Great Spirit Robot, with Metro Nui being below
So
it.
you could... are the stars that are
The stars...
inside the universe, like inside the universe of the Spirit Robot, are the same as the one in the real universe?
They're not.
Reflected in?
They're not.
But the Red Star is the exception.
The Red Star is the exception. Because the Great Spirit would need to know the actual location of the Red Star to summon it back to itself, so it's just used as a thing in the universe on the projected screens that are above the domes that make up every island. They have fake skies on every island that are a projection of what the Great Spirit wants the stars to look like.
Right.
The Red Star is also projected onto those, as it is also can be used as a form of health signal or something they would need to know there. But if on the island of Motunui, all the stars that you would see on the island of Motunui are real. They're all real stars. And the Red Star in the sky is just the propulsion jet that is just kind of hovering in the distance, waiting to be summoned to bring Motunui back up. Because it would just sit in orbit until...
So no one noticed that the stars change all the time on all the islands except Motunui?
They, presumably that... I mean, the stars change on Motunui. But to be fair, also they were only on Motunui for 1,000 years, and it was only like 1,000 Matoran. The rest of the universe was still going on.
What do you mean
In-
1,000 years?
It. What do you mean? What do I mean? 1,000
I thought there
years?
was thousands and thousands of years that, like, tens of thousands of years that, like, the Bohrok-Kal happened prior.
No. That was all inside the Great Spirit robot.
Right.
The
So
time that anyone was actually on the island of Motunui,
Oh. Okay.
where there are real stars in the
Wait,
sky,
the first time that any beings ever went there was after
was
the
1,000 years,
was
because
after the fall of
Motunui
humanity.
was created when the Great Cataclysm hit. It was a cloaking device to shield Motunui's face, which was exposed above the water surface.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's. I know they
Okay.
like to throw a lot of this stuff in there and just go, yeah, so that's a thing now.
And so the Great Beings created the Red Star rocket ship.
Yes. To be a repair function.
So does that mean that literally, like, Karzani's there now?
Okay, so here's where things get
Makuta is Scary Terry there?
No, because he doesn't have a body. So that is the so this is where Icarax is not either, because he was molecularly dispersed.
I kind of forgot how he died. So.
Yeah, he was just turned into particles and
Alright.
jettisoned across the universe.
Alright.
So this is where they kind of get their. They go, okay, well maybe not everyone's death was in vain, because the only way that you could be sent to the Red Star for repairs is if you had died and your body was fundamentally intact. You had a body to repair and then could bring you back. But this means that but this does have the caveat that anyone who died on the island of Motunui is dead, because they were not in the Great Spirit robot.
What? Oh, it's only anyone who dies in the robot.
In the robot, yes.
Alright.
This also means that Toa Lacan's team, who were vaporized by the Zygalak, they don't have any bodies. So they could not be that whatever. But apparently at some point before the Great Cataclysm, or after the Great Cataclysm, one Matoran got sent there, and all of a sudden the return function stopped working. And so there was just a bunch of people on this giant red star. And so, wow, this is a crazy revelation. What are we going to do with this, guys? What are we going to do with the fact that we've got Velika running around and, trying to kill everyone, and they've got these Batera that are going to fight Toa? What are we going to do? And the Shadowed One's got these crazy new powerful viruses. What are we going to do with all this? Fucking nothing. Fucking nothing is what we're going to do, because it's at this point that Greg Farshty goes, all right, guys, hey, sorry, so I just want to let you know that even though I started working on these, I'm not going to finish them. Lego wants me to do other stuff, and so I'm going to do that. And I'm no longer going to be doing
Was
any
it a legal thing?
final-
Was he not allowed to?
I think they just wanted him to work on his mother thing, and he was like, yeah, well, I'm not really getting anything out of doing the Bionicle thing anyway, since the Bionicle series is technically over, as far as Lego is concerned. So, deuces. And he goes
I
off.
thought we liked Greg Farshty.
We like Greg Farshty insofar as that he really brought a lot of the narrative flair of the Bionicle universe together. We dislike Greg Farshty because there are a lot of times that if he just had a really good editor, he could have things could have been made simpler and less bullshit. But also, the minute that you as a writer, it creates some kind of, inherent way to invalidate death is really kind of shitty. Toa Lacan's death was a huge factor for a lot of people. Even after going on, where you had the Matoran that learned of it, the 1,000 years after it happened, they looked to that as inspiration. And, they talked about that Jala had worn the mask of Toa Lacan and meant so much to him, and that, they had to get it back from the island of Karzani and stuff. And now it's fine, it's whatever. Toa Lacan, it'll be fine. It's fine. He's alive. It doesn't even matter. All those people who died, what's that?
But does Toa Lacan not have his mask?
I guess they give him another one. I don't know. And we'll never really know, because after that is where the series has completely ended and stopped for Bionicle Generation 1. And that brings us, unfortunately, to the end. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And you can imagine how the Bionicle community has just only been able to sustain itself through sheer willpower of mostly just making new designs or just making fan fiction and stuff, because we're never going to get it. We're never going to get to know all this stuff that was supposed to happen afterwards. We're never going to get anything clarified, and it just is, it's rough, because they just kind of cut it right there and just left so many holes open, and everything's up to interpretation, I guess. Now, a few years later, Lego would go on to, because people still seem to have a lot of interest in the Bionicle series, they would go on to make a sequel series, Bionicle Generation 2. And I will talk about that for only a very brief moment. But Bionicle Generation 2 is a complete reboot on the series. And they keep some of the original core elements of having like the names of the Toa, and they have kind of elemental powers, but they don't have the Matoran anymore. And it's not Matanui and Makuta. It's, you have Makuta and God, what's his name?
Katana.
No, it's not that. It's Ikimu. Ikimu, the mask creator.
That was close.
And they're brothers, and they made masks, and there's the 3 great masks. There's the mask of life, there's the mask of creation, and the mask of ultimate power, or something like that. And unfortunately, that series only also panned out for about 2 years before Lego canceled that series. They did get like a Netflix-style animation series a little bit. That was whatever. Unfortunately, they kind of killed a lot of personalities. Like, they made Pohatu like just a complete dickbag. Like, Pohatu Gen 1, super awesome, best boy, awesome dude, fun times. Pohatu Generation 2, what a sandy fucking cunt.
Language.
I don't care about. You still.
If you're a sandy cunt, might as well call him a scun.
A skunt. Oh, you skunt. But yeah, so that's pretty much where that has ended off. As I mentioned way back in the beginning, like Lego's acknowledgement of Bionicle has been next to nothing. Even in the Lego, once again, this is a series that fundamentally
Saved them, right?
saved the company. It made them so much money, because remember, back when Bionicles first started, the only reason they started was because by doing licensing stuff with LucasArts for Star Wars sets and like Harry Potter, they were making enough money to stay afloat and make enough money to try and invest into doing something to really make the money, because royalties were a bitch to pay. So they had a little bit of money to work with, but whatever they were going to put it to, they needed it to work. And it worked, and Bionicle completely saved it. They made so much money off of Bionicle, especially in the first 3 years. So much goddamn money off of it, enough that they were able to start and invest in other new series. And you have some spiritual successor series to Bionicle as well. The in-between time between Bionicle Gen 1 and Gen 2, they came out with Hero Factory, which lasted about 3 years and was middling success. Like, you can define the characters in like Bionicles, like, my name is Toa-Tahu, I'm an elemental hero, protector of fire, and I am the leader of the Toa Mata team, here to awaken Mata Nui and protect everyone from the Makuta, who has invaded this evil island, and all this stuff. And then like Hero Factory is like, my name's Jeff. it really do be like that though. So, which is, but that's also the weird duality of things. Bionicles, the series, was canceled because of a perceived waning of interest in the series, because you had a series that was going on for 10 years at this point, that, it was hard for new fans to want to get in because they had so much lore to catch up on. So the idea was they would just cancel it because, it's just hard to get kids to be invested in a series that had been around longer than they had been alive, and get them caught up with what the story was going on. But then you had things like Hero Factory and Bionicle Generation 2, which were panned because they became uninteresting because they didn't have a whole bunch of story depth to actually keep them afloat comparatively. So it's like, fuck, when you win, you lose. What do you do? So,
but Lego has like fuck you money now.
Lego has
Why
fuck
don't they do both? Why don't they continue? For,
because
Pokemon?
because you know why? Because Lego decided that Ninjago was the way to go. Lego invested into some other little smaller series, working things like Exoforce was a nice one where they did a lot of little mechs and stuff. Exoforce would eventually kind of evolve into what was this weird Bionicle Exoforce hybrid, which is Ninjago. And they have just been running that Ninjago train for so long, and it just keeps making money. So that is why they continue doing that. That is like Lego's big premiere series that is keeping them like narratively invested in it.
Like, they had like a whole show on Cartoon Network.
Oh yeah, they've had a few shows and comics and movies and whole bunch, video games, whole bunch of stuff. That is what I've been keeping, because Lego tried some other things like Lego Chima, which was basically just like Thundercat Bionicles, but that didn't really pan out. They had Lego Knights, also around the same time. as Bionicle, but that didn't really go anywhere
Yeah,
either.
some of them.
Yeah, we
I
have.
like those. A lot.
Yeah, well, I like them too, but everything doesn't work out. And so Lego's acknowledgement in general of Bionicle just has been like almost next to none. Once again, this brand that helped save their company doesn't even get a mention in the Lego movie. And even in like some storyboards, we see that there was supposed to be like a Takanuva kind of cameo in it even, and it just got scrapped.
Is there? I mean, there's some underlying like resentment or
I have
negative feelings from the
nobody can tell.
corporate side?
Nobody can tell. There's literally nobody knows. Nobody knows why Lego will not even say anything, to such a point that when the Lego Twitter actually acknowledges like any like fan Bionicle product, everyone gets all up in a rush. They're like, they did it. They said the B word. They said the Bionicle word. They did it. Because Lego just almost seems to like not want to acknowledge Bionicle in any way. They have no invested interest in trying to do anything with the brand of the series. So that's kind of unfortunate. And
It's
there's
the opposite of Disney.
yeah,
They just run the same shit into the ground for like decades.
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, we made this thing like 40 years ago, and we haven't done anything with it since then. How dare you speak its name? Give us money now. So this is, like I said, it's kind of good, kind of bad. Kind of good insofar as that going back to the Bionicle game we talked about originally, it kind of spawned my desire to really actually buckle down and actually do this lecture. Craney's team they met with executives from Lego and people, and Lego's mostly just been like, yeah, cool, do the Bionicle game, do it. Just don't make any money doing it, and we'll be fine. But we completely kind of give you our blessing as this being like an unofficial thing, and we're not going to try and copyright you guys as long as you don't make any money doing this. And so, yeah, the only other piece of the puzzle now is Christian Fager, who is, since last April or the April before, has been talking about Bio Revival, this Gen 3 Bionicle maybe. He's posting a lot of storyboards of... Christian Faber, once again, if we can't remember there, he was the head of Advanced Media, who did a lot of like the actual design for the Bionicle universe and a lot of concept arts and sketches and stuff. And so he's still putting out stuff out there. And it keeps talking about Bio Revival. And so a lot of people are just... You have some people who are really on board wanting this Bionicle Generation 3. And then you have a lot of people who think that Christian Faber is just kind of trolling us. And then you have some people that just want it to die. They just want Bionicle as a series to die. Yes.
Which camp are you in?
I want Bionicle Generation 3. I would spend so much money.
You're telling us about the game, like one of the first lectures.
Yeah.
The new one.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fan-made project. And I mean, it looks great. I would be so down if they decided to do Bionicle Generation 3. I would spend so much stupid money on Lego plastic toys.
Dummy money?
Dummy money. Especially because with the introduction of CCBS building systems, which is kind of redundant since it's like saying ATM machine, which is what they started to move towards after Bionicle, working into Hero Factory and Bionicle Generation 2. They've come up with better ways to build a lot of these kind of technic designs and a lot of cool new pieces to work with. So I would love to see if they could really make it happen. But it really kind of seems like the only like person of influence out there trying to push for anything Bionicle is Christian Faber. Because Greg Farsty has pretty much just wiped his hands clean of the entire thing. Bob Thompson, I don't believe, has any involvement.
Okay, I was confusing
Anymore?
him for Christian Faber.
Okay, yes. Christian Faber did a lot of like the...
Because he's the one who's still pushing.
Yes.
Okay.
Greg Farsty is kind of like, never speak to me or my son about Bionicles again. Like he's really just washed his hands. But to be fair, like even when people interview him for questions about Bionicle, like he just says the same dumb. He has to answer the same dumb questions over and over. Nobody's brought anything new to the table for him, and I can only imagine it must be so tiring.
How much dedicated wham for the service?
What is the recommended about a dedicated wham?
For Bionicle,
for
for
Bionicle.
giant spirit robot.
Great spirit robot. But yeah, so that's it. That's where things stand now. There are a few fan-made projects. Once again, Biomedia project is by far and away like the de facto, like the team they have on there is great as far as pulling resources from every possible conceivable thing of Bionicle ever. Pictures and magazines, actual like Lego magazine advertisements and stuff, the books, the movies, everything can be found on their website, where you can, if you ever want to actually really get invested in learn all this shit yourself and look and see what else is out there and see, you know, demos from, you know, unfinished games and prototypes or, you know, hidden new stuff. Like, it's all on there. Super great. Amazing reference. To the people of Biomedia Project, thank you. You guys do a phenomenal job. And besides that, you have BSO1, Biosector 01, which is more or less, once again, like the de facto wiki for Bionicle stuff. I mean, there is a Bionicle wiki, but a lot of people will direct you more to BSO1 just because it is more comprehensive and thorough in its design, as well as the information therein. And then other than that, there are, like I said, a few video, like fan-made stuff going on. The most notable recently, especially, is Craney, who his team working on Quest for Matanui, which they just got the announcer who did a lot of the announcement stuff, who would do like for commercials for Bionicle. They just got him to do some voice line stuff for stuff with the game, so that's kind of really nostalgic and cool. I dig it a lot. Christian Fabier posted an article, or he retweeted and reposted an article that some news medias have made about Quest for Matanui, so that's super big. I'm super interested in that. But I mean, you have some other people like Bionicle animation projects that seek to, you know, animate certain sequences and stuff from the books that were just never, because we never got movies for the Mario Nui saga or the Cardinui saga, or, you know, the Voyanui, and you have several people who are also just doing like narrative read-throughs of a lot of them. So the fan community is really like the most important thing now, because most official sources have just abandoned Bionicle entirely. So now to enjoy it like in any capacity, really, like that's all you got, is hoping for fan creation product, because Lego has no intention of doing anything with Bionicle, but at least they've kind of let us know that we don't care if you do.
Really? They've said that?
They have more or less implied that very heavily through many different projects, for fan projects. So long as nobody's making money off of it,
right?
They're like, just
so
kind of do whatever.
Like, have a ban hammer for like every
nope.
Nintendo run.
Yep. Nope. It doesn't seem like that.
Okay.
So I mean, good on Lego.
At least if they're gonna ignore Bionicle, they're gonna do it unilaterally.
They're gonna ignore it. Yeah, exactly. They're like, we don't care about this thing anymore, so you can play with our old toys as much as you like, which is uncharacteristically like nice. So I mean, that's it. That's the story. Before we finish wrapping up everything, I mean, are there any questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, Jason.
So when do we do the Mega Bloks Dragons Ice and Fire lecture?
Ooh, good question. Good question. That's for the sequel series. We'll have that ready for you. Stay tuned for more information on that, or not. We'll see. You don't know. Next question.
Next question. Could be two questions depending if they differ, or they could be the same.
Okay.
What is your favorite character and or toy?
100%. That's a tough question. I'm going to go with Toa Lacan. I think Toa Lacan was 100%, like down to his bones, the embodiment of what a Toa should be at every single point. I think that he is the embodiment of self-sacrifice that Toa have to be. It was so like universally like just a good mentor to the Toa Metru when he was allowed to be. You know, he gave everyone the push they needed when they needed it, but was never like, even when Vakama like fucked up and was like, yeah, no, we rescued you, and he was like, no, you need to rescue the Matoran. Like, that's what we need to do. I don't know, just something about that character in general, just so solid. Also, the red and gold was fire.
So you'd also say is your favorite?
Oh, it was probably one of my favorite toys. If not him, probably Takanuva. Either the original 2003 version, just because I really loved that design. I love the Nuva designs. Or the 2008 Cardinui revamped version of him, where he's a Toa of Shadow and Light. Because I think it's just so fucking cool. I love the redesign, how they did a different mold for the Mask of Light. It's just super cool. Just super cool. I mean, I'm also, like, deep down in my heart, I'm also like, Toa Liwa, though. He has some good designs, too. I don't know, like, there are a lot of really cool designs. Even, like, the Toa Haga, like Toa Iruni. Super nice. The golden green, was not expecting it, but pretty nice. Not a big fan of the Hordika designs. Don't really care about the Vizirac designs. The Toa Metro designs kind of go on after a while, and I wasn't particularly fond of any of the Toa Mari designs. The Anika were okay, I guess. The Baraka were fun. Love the Mystica and Fantoka lines entirely. Love how wildly fun those designs looked. As far as like the different Makuta, just being like, because I mean, you know, you had in the first one where it was the Fantoka line, where the Makuta were all basically bats, but they were all like fun different versions of bats, just in the pieces they used. And with the Makuta, they were all functionally just giant bugs. And I was like, this is kind of neat. It's a really neat kind of just, I don't know. I really love the 2008 year as a whole, both story and design. But if I really had to boil everything down, I would probably just be super basic and go Toa Lacan, just 100%. Any other questions? Yes.
If you were Toa, what would you want your power to be?
Ooh,
Your
good
element
question. That'd probably be Toa Bear. Like I said, the Toa Liwa was my
Not
first.
fire?
Not fire.
What the
Wow.
fuck?
I know, right?
What?
It's weird. It's
Fuck.
weird. Listen, I can't be fire all the
Recount.
time. A recount of what? It's literally just me.
Can you count to one though?
Oh, fuck.
I count to one first, so I choose fire for you.
Okay, well he chooses fire. I guess I don't have a choice. I guess I just get to be.
Air?
I guess I get to be the leader for no reason, just because I'm red.
Yeah.
No one picks
Reminder.
air.
Yeah. I don't know. It's fun. I mean, there are other Toa powers. Toa Sonics would be cool, but I mean, they said that there's a lot of drawbacks with it too because they have a lot of sensitive hearing, so their own powers would destroy themselves. Like Toa Psionics is neat, but it's basically just like Toa of telepathy. Toa of lightning, that might be cool. Of electricity or magnetism, would be pretty cool. I don't know. I mean, if we're talking strictly base 6, my initial instinct is to go with air because I think the idea of flying is super fun.
I wasn't. Okay, well, that's good to know for both, but I wasn't making it exclusive to the basics.
Yeah, we're doing exclusive original. Like I'll probably go air because like flight is just such a cool like idea.
But that's a mass power.
It is a mass power, but being able to control winds, like even though that Toa Liwa did not have the mask of flight, he had a mask of levitation that he used in conjunction with his ability to use air. Or even people like Matau, who was able to use his arrow slicers on his back, his swords, as wings, as glider wings, and just propel himself up with his wind abilities.
Now, my next question was going to be mass power.
Ooh, mask power. Ooh,
There's so many.
there are so many. Mask of Kindred, probably hands down one of the most busted. The ability to be able to use the abilities of any animal that you're aware of. It's just being being giga animorphs.
That's what
Toa Mari Holly had.
yeah.
Total. It's such a busted mask. So good. Such a good, like, powerful mask from like such a weird, like a way to look at it. Other top contenders would be obviously. I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna dispute Mask of Dimensional Gates, Kanohi Olmec, like literally like the most Chad mask there is.
And what about the Mask of Creation?
Mask of Creation is cool, but we don't really know that much about it. It creates, but it doesn't create perfectly. We know that Artaka could not create Rahi. That was the one thing he couldn't fucking create. Because the first time he tried to, he made giant crystal snakes that were just totally destroyed. And he was like, you know what? Nope, I can't make Rahi. Never again.
All right.
So it's not without its flaws. So we know it can create presumably a lot of inorganic things, or maybe organic. I mean, it could create Toa. Who knows? So some other ones on there. Mask of Quick Teleport. Colossi, Mask of Toa Aga Iruni. This is pretty cool. Just being able to teleport wherever you can look. I feel like that's a lot lesser version of the Kanohi Olmec, but I think there's a lot less fuckery that you'd get into with it. It's a lot more direct, like, look, okay, I'm there.
It's like a more balanced.
It's a more balanced version instead of Kanohi Olmec, where it's like, I can open dimensional gates, and you're just dimension hopping until...
To a dimension that doesn't have other Toa.
Yeah, or whatever. Who knows? Dude, we get that fucking... Dude, we get the fucking anime universe. We get the anime... Oh, that's what we need. The Bionicle... we get the fucking JoJo Bionicle universe. That's what I want. We're gonna go to
Vakama-sama.
the. Ho ho! You're approaching me, Vakama.
Makuta, kite kurete.
But yeah, so okay. I would not pick the mask of water breathing. I feel like there might be some better masks. Feel like no, not the cow.
Cow.
Thank you. You're welcome. A mask of translation would be cool, just because it's literally just massive languages. You can perceive and understand and translate written and audible
Okay.
text and everything.
Of the two languages we know that exist in the Matoran universe, which one's your favorite? The being the base language and the whistles and beeps.
Oh, there's three.
Oh, there's three.
There's a third
Oh,
language
fuck.
because the Agori and the Glatorian have their own language
Oh,
too.
shit. All right.
But
so which
the,
of the three
the
languages?
Mask of Life made it so everyone can understand each other, though.
Oh,
I forgot to
bullshit.
put that little bit in
Bullshit.
there.
Oh, all right. Well,
It did, because it was like it brought everything piece of the universe and also made it so everyone could understand each other.
well, the Tower of Babel came crashing down, I guess.
Yeah,
All three languages.
Yeah, all three of
into
them.
one.
All three of them. Oh man, but Whistle Clicks sounds pretty cool.
Whistle clicks is definitely what I do.
Whistle Clicks.
New Jew.
New Jew.
I guess last question that is like progressively less important. Do you have a favorite Rocky?
Ooh, favorite Rahi. Not a bad topic. In lore, the Tatrak, just because I love.
What is the answer?
What is the answer?
What is the answer?
I love that the Tatrak just keeps getting trolled throughout the Tatrak of Metro Nui specifically keeps getting trolled so hard its entire life. It's such a good meme. Oh my god, I love it. I mean, like, we could also look at people like Kraka or Kitongu as really cool Rahi. Kitongu is pretty cool. He did horny smash bonk King Simperak to death. That was very cool, Kitongu. Very cool. I'm trying to think of other Rahi that I really dug. I mean, like, I kind of like the Kikanalo because they're basically just like rhinoceros kangaroo. They're kind of neat. And Uso crabs are neat, I guess. Well, if I had to, you know what though? I'll give a special shout out to whatever crab it was that Jala had that carried his blaster on. That crab was a champ because that crab didn't have any idea what was going on when they were underwater, and Jala just slapped a rocket launcher on its back and carried it around to just shoot stuff. It was a Hana crab, that's what it was, and it was just cool with it. So shout out to Jala for always getting crabs because he got Puku after Takanuva didn't need Puku anymore, and then he got a Hana crab, which nobody knows what happened to that crab. You like a crab? Me too.
How are we good on time? Can I ask more stupid questions?
Yeah, I get about 7 minutes.
Okay, cool. If you had to join either the Brotherhood of Makuta or the
Brotherhood of Makuta or the Dark
yeah,
Hunters?
or the Dark Hunters.
Okay, does it only have to be those, or are we not?
Yeah. If we're doing like baddies.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably go with
Like that's a feud. Like if you had to either be worried about killing Makuta Pterodax or killing the Shadowed One.
I feel like that's a rough question because I feel like being in the Brotherhood of Makuta is arbitrarily safer, but I feel like you'd be a lot more competent if you were in the Dark Hunter Brotherhood. Like, are you a Makuta in the Brotherhood of Makuta? 100% Brotherhood of Makuta. Are you literally anything else?
I'm saying that you can be Matoranto, whatever else, and you're deciding to join one of these factions. I'll make that the limitation.
The limitation.
Okay, I'll say that you could be any species that is not Botars, Brutakas, Axons, like
any of like the Order of Montanui's
the big dick swingers.
Okay.
But you could be like I would say that you could be what are the Praka?
Skakti?
Yeah, you could be Skakti. You could be like pretty much anything else.
I mean, if you're
joining one of
if you're
these.
going full races, whatever, you would probably like Dark Hunters all the way.
Yeah.
Because if you're in the Dark Hunters, you're probably going to be a lot more specialized in whatever you're going to be doing. You're probably going to be a lot more powerful. You're probably not going to be used as fodder. The downside is you just can't fuck up at all because you'll just get your asshole kicked inside out. I feel like at least with the Brotherhood of Makuta, if you fuck up, you won't live long enough to suffer that. So, you know, that's kind of the rub on that. I feel like if it's literally like you can just choose whatever you want to be. Like it kind of depends. If you're Toa, I would go with Brotherhood of Makuta, just because they have access to a lot more stuff. But if you're literally anything else, I'd say you just go and you be a Dark Hunter.
Okay.
So, because even if you wanted to look at it as, oh well, you have to be a good, you can't be the Dark Hunters if you don't have a conscience. Dark Hunters, there are several Dark Hunters that are just powerful enough that like they'll just outright decline like things that are given to them. And the Shadowed One is like, okay, you know what, you're just not a good fit for this anyway. They will just outright decline them because either through a use or either like, because they'll basically be like how people are when they're trying to get out of jury duty. And they'll basically like, look, if I go on this mission, I'm going to fuck everything up. I'm going to destroy everything. And there's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm just going to completely ruin this. And I've never thought a cop would lie to me. And I believe the justice system is completely flawless and it works every single time. And that if someone has been accused of a crime, they're 100% guilty. And that's why I should not be on jury duty. I mean, that's why I shouldn't go on this mission. So I mean, it's that same kind of like you'll have characters that do that. And the Shadowed One's just like, yeah, you just wouldn't be a good fit for this anyway. So we'll find somebody else who do this. Versus like the Brotherhood of Makuta, it's like, okay, cool, this is what you're doing. Sucks. So I guess yeah.
Okay. So almost everything.
Almost everything. If you're Toa, I would say if you're Toa, Brotherhood of Makuta, if only because the Dark Hunters are like explicitly like we just love killing Toa so much, and I feel like there's a conflict of interest there.
But I think that there were some fallen Toa that joined.
There were some like that have been mutated or put into energized.
So there's some caveats.
Yeah, there's some caveats there. They no longer consider themselves to be Toa.
What is one toy that was never made that you wish was?
Ooh, 100% mutated Brutaka.
Okay.
Underwater mutated Brutaka would have been phenomenal. I want that so bad. That would be so cool.
Edit in a picture on screen when this happens. Okay.
He's not going to make Hydrotaka happen. But all right.
Last question.
Okay, last question for real.
Since the lot got cut off at the end, if there was one thing in the lore that you, if you could know the answer to, like the end result being tied up, what would it be?
Where did the Great Beings go? Okay. Where did the Great Beings end up? You know, why haven't they been involved? If they were able to do a lot of really cool stuff, why didn't they find another means to fix the planet? Or build another road? Or where did they go in general? Because there's no discernible, like, this explicitly is where the Great Beings just left the planet and went off to do other stuff. Or Great Beings went down and dug themselves tunnels underground to live like mole people. There's just no closure on, there's no information on that at all. Because I think also if you had that information, you could at least try and get people to start working on a continuation for the series. You have to find out where the Great Beings are. And if they gave us like some inkling or inclination, like, okay, well, so this is what the Great Beings timeline was on things, I would be pretty happy with that.
Do you think that was included in the second half? That was supposed to be part of Matanui's journey?
Oh, 100%. I think that was supposed to be the original second half. I don't believe the fight was supposed to happen as soon as it did.
Right.
I think that what it would have been was Machanui would have gone to seek out the Great Beings first and done a lot of stuff and then led up to that final climactic conclusion over the years. Or what would have been was they would have gotten halfway through, had the big climactic battle fight, and then the last 5 years of the series would be spent focusing on tying up all the loose ends and focusing on where things move towards the future. I think that's how they would have gone about that. Because it was very clear, like Greg Farshey talked about, that even in 2008, he had learned that they were planning to cancel the series. Even though it officially did not end until technically 2010, with him continuing to write a few little side pieces here in 2011. So, yeah, that's it. But all right, thanks for sticking around for the past 28 to 30 hours of content and listening to me talk. Big thanks to everyone who showed up to listen, even though several of them are not here, whether they were here or not individual. Also, big thanks to my boy, my editor and film guy, Zach Man.
Yeah, I was here for every episode.
He was here for every... Zach Man. He's the only person who's here for every single episode, besides me. But, you know, that's the thing. But all right, cool. Thanks for watching.